Good afternoon. Today we're going to discuss micro purchase and small purchase procurement. There are two types of small procurements. Micro purchase is a tool that SFAs can use to purchase food, supplies, or services with a value of $30,000 or less. This method is generally used for occasional activities such as the harvest of the month, sampling new products, trying out a vendor, or an emergency purchase. When using micro purchase method of procurement, SFAs must distribute micro purchases equitably among qualified suppliers. Micro purchases may only be used when the SFA considers the price to be reasonable. The small purchase procurement's threshold is $60,000 or less. Charter schools would have a threshold of $250,000 or less. The local SFA may have more stringent requirements. In all cases, state law requires that 3 quotes be obtained. If multiple quotes are obtained throughout the year for the same items and the total amount is going to exceed $60,000, the SFA must use the formal bid method. If you decide to use the small procurement method and obtain quotes, remember that the SFA director is responsible for ensuring that the total does not exceed $60,000. Although not mandatory, public entities seeking contracts for purchases of materials and supplies for less than $1,000 should consider as part of a good public policy requiring governmental accountability, obtaining and documenting at least 3 verbal quotes. For purchases less than $10,000 but greater than $1,000, prudent practice suggests obtaining at least 3 written quotes through the law, though the law does not require it. First, we will discuss the micro purchase method. Micro purchasing allows the districts to react quickly to changing markets and urgent needs. It is also useful to smaller districts where purchases may fall under $30,000. Before contacting a supplier to make a purchase, districts should perform market research to understand what a reasonable price for the product is. Micro purchases may be especially useful when purchasing local products. For example, a district is committed to purchasing a variety of products seasonally and has built flexibility into its menu to enable the district to purchase small quantities of produce when local farmers might have a surplus. The micro purchase method is not to be used to avoid proper procurement. If a micro purchase procurement is used several times in a year for the same product or products, it is likely that the small purchase procurement method should have been used. The state of Louisiana has waived the state small purchase threshold when purchasing local agricultural products. The federal threshold for small quotes may be used when procuring local agricultural products for contracts valued at less than $250,000. Across the country, an increasing number of child nutrition program operators are sourcing local food and providing complementary educational activities that emphasizes food, nutrition, and agriculture. Some of the benefits of doing this are supporting the local community, lower school meal program costs, increased meal participation, and reduced food waste. Some great resources for helping you navigate the procurement of local foods are available on the Farm to School website's resources page. This can be found at www.fns.usda.gov/CFS. We suggest keeping a printout or saving a copy to your desktop for the Procuring Local Foods for Child Nutrition Programs Guide. This guide helps navigate the procurement rules correctly. It includes menu planning basics, fundamental principles of procurement, several potential sources of local products, and a variety of ways to procure the products. Now let's take a look at the micro purchase method to make sure that the correct procedures are being followed. When planning purchases, the first question to ask yourself about micro purchases is whether each transaction will be $30,000 or below. The second question is, are the prices reasonable? We don't have clear-cut guidelines for what is considered reasonable. The question, would a prudent person pay the same price as the SFA paid, can be used to determine if the price is reasonable. For example, is $10 for a loaf of bread reasonable? And we will all say, of course not. The SFA should be doing some market research before purchasing to see what is reasonable. This step must be taken to make sure the purchase is below the $30,000 threshold. It is advisable to maintain documents of your research. Market research could include things like listing stores in the area with types of products they have available, looking through local circulars, and looking on the internet for price comparisons. The final question would be based on a review of the invoices and receipts. Is the SFA compliant with the use of the micro-purchase method? You can determine this by looking at the invoices and receipts and determining if the prices were below $30,000. If the prices seem reasonable and were the purchase spread equitably among vendors. The use of the micro-purchase method is one of the major findings we have on procurement reviews because SFAs do not spread the wealth amongst qualified suppliers. An exception to spreading the wealth would be when the SFA or site is in a small town that has only one grocery store and the next closest grocery store is 30 miles away. If this is the case, it should be reflected in the procurement plan. Purchase orders and charge accounts cannot be used as a reason to purchase from only one vendor. Now let's do an activity. Let's look at some micro purchases to see if they are compliant. If an SFA purchased $280 in food and supplies from Walmart in August, in September, they purchased $120 in food and supplies from Dollar General. In October, they purchased $15 from Walmart and $35 from Dollar General. Would this be considered compliant? Yes, this is considered compliant because the SFA has spread the wealth amongst vendors. Would this scenario be compliant? The SFA made one purchase for printing applications for $2,354.78. There was no other printing purchase during the year. Would this be considered compliant? Yes, this would be considered compliant because there was only one purchase. If printing services had been needed later in the year, a different vendor would need to be used. Another question of compliance. The SFA purchased repair parts one time from Ace Hardware for a total of $122. The SFA purchased repair parts 11 times from Chandler's Parts for a total of $1,456. Would this scenario be compliant? No, this is not compliant because the SFA did not spread the wealth equitably either in the number of purchases of the value of purchase. In this scenario, there are only 3 stores in a small town. The SFA had 20 purchases from store A for a total of $1,098. At store B, there were 12 purchases for a total of $1,456. The SFA made 6 purchases at store C for $1,657. Would this be compliant? Yes, because the SFA has spread the wealth. Now we will review the small purchase procurement process. Small purchase procurement gets more complicated because the thresholds are different depending on the type of SFA and limits imposed by the state of Louisiana and your local SFA. The federal threshold for small purchase is at or below $250,000. In Louisiana, remember that the small purchase threshold for charter schools is $250,000. For all other SFAs, the state of Louisiana's small purchase threshold is $60,000. Each SFA has to find out from their administration what their small purchase threshold is. This amount can vary by local agency. Small purchase procurements are typically called quotes. When doing a small purchase procurement, the SFA must provide potential vendors with written specifications. There must be clear and accurate descriptions of the technical requirements. This could be delivery dates, times, or etc. When purchasing unprocessed agricultural products, the Buy American requirements also apply. USDA requires quotes to be obtained from at least 2 sources. Louisiana Revised Statute 332212.1 states that 3 documented quotes are required for purchases between $30,000 and $60,000. So which do we follow? We must always follow the stricter, so 3 documented quotes would be required. During a procurement review, the reviewer must make a determination as to whether the SFA restricted competition by placing unreasonable requirements on the firm. This could include requiring that the company be located in the parish or state or currently have 15 contracts with other school districts, requiring unnecessary experience or excessive bonding, such as requiring 25 years of food service experience, and specifying a brand name. They must also determine if the technical requirements for the product or services were crystal clear and accurate. Solicitations should include specifications in which the SFA articulates their needs. This description may include a statement of the qualitative nature of the material, product, or service to be procured. The description should not be overly detailed as to restrict competition. SFAs would need to be careful here to balance against making sure that the SFA gets what they need and avoiding restricting competition. Does the solicitation include a requirement that food products must be produced and processed in the United States? And were adequate records maintained that provide a history of the procurement? And lastly, did the SFA maintain records sufficient to detail the significant history of the procurement? This has been a finding on multiple administrative reviews during the years. Was the correct vendor selected based on the products, services requested, and the vendor responses provided? The reviewer will audit invoices and receipts to ensure the SFA purchased the products that were solicited from the vendor and that they paid the price that was bid. Let us move on to another activity. Is the SFA compliant if they only obtained one quote and printed the price quote? From Amazon? No, they were not compliant because 3 quotes were needed. Would this be compliant? 1 quote obtained from the only local company providing the service. In a situation like this, it depends on how far away the next closest company is. It is possible that they could compete with the local company despite being some distance away. Is this compliant? 3 quotes were requested on a Garland ES10S Master Series convection oven. No, this is not compliant because a brand name was specified with no equal or pre-approved equal allowed. Would this be compliant? The Buy American certification form was not provided as required with a quote for produce. This is also not compliant. The vendor would be considered non-responsive as they did not provide the required information along with their quote. Now we will allow for a few moments for questions to be dropped down into our chat box. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions in the chat box. But if you do have questions at a later date, please feel free to contact the LDOE Division of Nutrition Support at 225-342-9661 or email childnutritionprograms@la.gov. Thank you for attending our small purchase and micro purchase procurement today. Have a great day.